Thank you for checking out our podcast today. We hope that the teaching you're about to hear would inspire you and motivate you on your incredible journey in becoming a better you. So please turn your attention to today's message.
You may not know the word. If you know the word, great. If you don't know the word, we're going to talk about it quite extensively. And we're going to spend a lot of time on it. It is the E word. The E word. We're going to be talking about evangelism. Evangelism. Now, as I talk about this word, I'm not going to give you all of the specifics of the word as I'm going to continue to build onto it. In fact, next week, my girl, Dr. Gladys, is going to be tearing it. She's going to be tearing it up. I said, Dr. Gladys, I've been talking. I think I want to talk about evangelism. She said, no, you got to get me next week. I said, no. I haven't even preached for a whole month. She goes, no, I want to speak next week. I was like, Miss Dr. Gladys is too aggressive. I don't like you coming across that way. No, but I'm going to be ministering in another church. There's another church that has asked me to come out and do the word there. And, hey, listen, this is not about Pastor Jose. We have more qualified people here to do this than myself. So Dr. Gladys is going to be here next week, tearing it up. So she's going to continue on the topic of evangelism. So listen, so the word evangelism, the definition for the word evangelism, we may need to adjust some lights here just so that we could get... So the word evangelism means the spreading of the Christian message or gospel. That word gospel, let me hear you say gospel. Gospel. That word gospel just simply means good news. That's all it means is good news, all right? Good news. So evangelism means the spreading of the Christian message or the gospel, good news, by public preaching. Somebody say preaching. Preaching. Say it again. Hey, listen, look at the person next to you. That person is a preacher. That person alongside of you is listen, we're all called to preach. The word preach simply means to announce. The word preach simply means to announce and or personal witness. All right, everybody got that? Yes. So an easy way to sum up the meaning for the word evangelism, I have this definition up here. Let's put this up. It's a real easy way. Tell or share Jesus with people. Sometimes we find that to be very hard, but in the next few weeks, I want to get you so excited to tell people about Jesus, getting excited to share good news. Good, you know that's one of the, I was playing the keyboard today. I was practicing before, just trying to learn how to do this thing all over again, and George couldn't contain himself because he had good news. He had good news. It was just trying to take me out. I'm like going, George, shut up. Get out of here. He's like, I got to tell you something. I'm going, shut up. I don't want to hear it. He goes, yeah, it's good news. You want to hear this. I'm like, go, George, get away from me. And literally, I mean, he was just so persistent to tell us the good news. And I'm like, great news. That is good news. It was good news. But that excitement is the excitement that we need when we are given an opportunity to tell somebody about Jesus. Now, our mission here at Scarlet Note, it's very simple. It's to be a church that its people reach the world for Jesus by leading lives that influence every sphere of life. That's our mission statement. That's our mission statement here. To be a church that its people reach the world for Jesus by leading lives that influence every sphere of life. Now, I'm going to read a story to you about a man who met Jesus. Jesus met him, Jesus called him, Jesus brought him on board, and upon bringing him on board onto his ministry, onto his team, he was so excited that he did something that I think we all do too common. We just don't emphasize on it. But let's go to the book of Luke, chapter 5, verses 27 to 32. Later, as Jesus left the town, now listen, Jesus had just arrived into Galilee, and he was ministering, he was preaching, he was teaching into some of the villages and the towns in the area. And the Bible says that as he is leaving, all right, as Jesus left the town there where he was speaking, he saw a tax collector. Somebody say tax collector. And his name was Levi. What was his name? Levi. Now, what's interesting about this is that person, Levi, is actually Matthew, the disciple. All right, it's actually Matthew. Now, Levi is believed to be his last name or his name association. So he would be Matthew of the Levites, okay? Matthew of the Levites. So he was a tax collector. Now, let me tell you about this kind of a tax collector in those times. In those days, tax collectors didn't have a prestigious role as those today. If you are an IRS agent, you may not be liked very much, but it's still a pretty prestigious job. It really is a prestigious job. You got a decent salary. You get some benefits, right? But in those days, if you were a tax collector, you were a tax collector for the Roman Empire. What this meant is that you were actually obligated. It's not like you applied for that job. It's like they would go around and go, you with the beard, you will now be assigned the position of a tax collector. So regardless of what your career was, regardless of what your occupation was, regardless of what you were doing or your profession, if the Romans said that you were going to do it because you were under their power, you were obligated to do it. So that means that you would now have to collect taxes for the Roman Empire. Now check this out. Check this out. That means that he would no longer have a regular salary coming from what he used to do. Now his salary would be contingent on anything that he could charge over top of whatever percentage belonged to Rome. So that means if there was a 20% tax, if he wanted to eat and feed his family, he had to kind of bump up the taxes so that he could have an income and feed his family. So in the community, he was despised because he would be considered a traitor, a sellout. In fact, even in the place of worship, the tax collectors, also known as publicans, were always rejected. They were a rejected people, the equivalent of someone with leprosy. Everybody follow me? So check this out. The reason I have to give you that backstory is so that you understand why this man is just so happy. So he is sitting at his tax collector's booth, and Jesus says, "Follow me and be my disciple." Jesus said to him, now listen, so Levi got up and left some things. He what? He left everything. Somebody say everything. He left everything and he followed who? He followed who? He followed Jesus. The next verse. Later, now there isn't a span of time that measures when all of this happened, but the Bible says later Levi held a banquet. Somebody say party. Come on, somebody say party. So Levi has a party. Matthew has a party. And he has a party, and in his home, Jesus is the guest of honor. So he has a party, and Jesus is the guest of honor. Many of Levi's fellow tax collectors and other guests also ate with them. Next verse. But the Pharisees and their teachers of religious law, listen to this, the Pharisees and the teachers of law, of religious law, they did what? Complained bitterly to Jesus' disciples. They were complaining. Why do you eat and drink with such scum? Hector, stand up. Hector, Balbu. Hector, stand up. So it's like, why would you eat with such scum? If Liz would have been here, she was like, well, that's right. Scum. No, but listen, because you have to understand the tone. You have to understand the tone here. Scum. That's scum. And who was this coming from? It wasn't coming from his fellow tax collectors. It wasn't coming from his guests. Who was it coming from? The religious. All right, the church folk. That's where it was coming from. From the preachers, from the pastors. It was coming from the religious teachers. That's scum. How could you associate yourself with scum? My God, I like that. Scum. look, Hector's like going, not me, I'm about to smack you. Now, have a seat. Have a seat, Hector. You need to understand that. Now, Jesus answered them and said, healthy people don't need a doctor. Sick people do. I have come to call not those who think that they are righteous, but those who know that they are sinners and need to repent. Now, again, remember what we're talking about. We're talking about evangelism. See, it's very easy for us to look across the room and look at the counterpart or look at guests or look at family members and look beyond and just look at scum. And Jesus goes, you know what? I came for that scum. So what we find are 4 things that are fundamental in evangelism that I want to share as we develop this. As we preach or we announce or we proclaim or we tell and we share the gospel, what does gospel mean? Good news. Gospel means good news, all right? I want to give you 4 things to help us funnel our conversations, our strategy as we tell people about Jesus. See, many people don't talk about Jesus, they talk about their church. Seriously. Many people don't talk about Jesus. They want to go to my church. It's a good church. Got good music and good people. Our ushers look decent. They all have their teeth. But no. But what I'm saying is we don't tell people about Jesus. We tell people about our church. We tell people about our pastor. We tell people about the music, programs, but we don't talk about Jesus. So I want to give you these 4 things. Number 1, Jesus pointed out that the people that were in the room were sick. He pointed out that everybody that was there, they're sick. Reason I am here is because there is a need. Rob, I got that, Rob. I got that, Rob. Listen, and he points out the condition. Now, the simple fact that Jesus supernaturally can tell that everybody that's in that room is sick is showing us that he can supernaturally pierce the heart of man. And this is why people need Jesus. People need Jesus not just to be saved, but they need their hearts pierced. When you and I speak to people that don't know Jesus, the first thing we have to take into account is the fact that their condition has been likened to a sickness. Now, think about that. So when you're talking to someone about Jesus, and this person doesn't know Jesus or doesn't know anything or doesn't even believe in God, you have to keep into account that the Bible calls them, they're sick. It's likened to having a sickness. Most important, the fact that Jesus calls himself the doctor also shows the first point that I want to make here today over all humanity is that we have the obligation, the responsibility, as we are communicating Jesus to people, that we are showing and expressing his sovereignty. Somebody say sovereignty. Come on, say it one more time, sovereignty. Now that word sovereignty means supreme power over any and all authority. All right? Sovereignty. Supreme power over any and all authority. So now the fact that Jesus is calling himself as the answer to their level of what the Pharisees considered to be scum shows us that he has sovereignty. In evangelism, you and I have the burden to remind and persuade the listener of their immortality. While at the same time, we're reminding the listener of how frail their life is. You know, I talk to people that live life like every day is promised to them. Like they know that tomorrow they're going to wake up, and tomorrow their kids are going to wake up, and they just have this arrogant expectancy of life. And I want you to know that you don't know your days. Like you don't know your days. So every moment that I get in the presence of my sons, in the presence of my daughter, and in the presence of my wife, I don't take that time lightly, because it could be the very last time they're in my life or I'm in theirs. Are you listening? Now, Jesus is sovereign, we're not. Now listen, so in evangelism, I have the obligation to remind the listener how frail their life is, especially when they're separated from God. Jesus knew their condition. Jesus knew their sickness. He knew their disease, but more importantly, Jesus knew that there were others that were in the room. Stand up again, scum. Stand up again, Hector. He also knew that in the room there were people that were considering themselves above scum, and Jesus knew that they too were sick. That no matter what they were wearing on the outside, no matter what they were doing in the church service on Sunday, Jesus knew them too to be scum. All right, have a seat, buddy. Hector, don't get offended. This is illustration purposes. Don't wait for me outside. I have security. No, so listen. So it's my obligation. That's my responsibility as I am conveying that message. Jesus knew their condition, and he knew their sickness. He knew that they were thinking of themselves as above others. Now, that's real common today. I'm seriously, especially on a Sunday morning. Churches are full of people that believe themselves to be righteous. And Jesus goes, you guys are all sick. You need me. Number two, the next thing that we find is that Jesus tells the Pharisee that he is the doctor. Now, this speaks about his sovereignty, because Jesus is not only acknowledging those guys are sick, but he's like, oh, hey, I'm the medicine. I'm the remedy. Salvation is the condition that we all ought to pursue to help the consequence of sin. All of God's creation has inherited a sinful nature as a result of the first man and the first woman being disobedient. So then this truth of their disobedience in the beginning spills over to all of us, and now we are all in need of forgiveness and salvation. So the sacrifice on the cross satisfied the requirement needed to satisfy the penalty of sin or that disobedience. And all we have to do is receive the benefit that's been accredited based on his sacrifice, and it's 100% unmerited. I did not deserve. So if you have a cross, anybody has a little cross pendant? Anybody on you? Anybody? No? Cross pendant, cross. Una cruz, una cross, yeah, cross. Somebody has a tattoo, like going, I forget the jewelry, I'm going to tattoo it to my skin. Yeah, look, he got it over there. Well, you know what? That cross doesn't just remind you of the forgiveness of your sin, but it reminds you of something else that I want to share with you. Go to John chapter 19, verse 30. I love this. When Jesus had tasted it. Now, Jesus is on the cross. There are 7 phrases that Jesus expresses on the cross. This is the last one, all right? And he said, I am thirsty. I thirst. And the Roman soldiers had grabbed a sponge and they put some vinegar, they made a cocktail of vinegar and wine, and they put it on a spear, and they drew the spear up to the cross, and they put it in his mouth, and the Bible says that he tasted it, and then he said, it is, come on, let me hear this side over here. Then he bowed his head and he released his spirit. Let me talk to you about what that means. Because you got to get this. Wow, my salvation, that image of the cross reminds me of this. Now, the last phrase that's uttered by Jesus, he does this in Aramaic. And as he does this in Aramaic, it got translated into Greek. Now that it is finished, translated into Greek, they use a word called tetelestai. Tetelestai. Say that with me, tetelestai. Now this is important because it just changes that meaning from it is finished to paid in full. Okay? So it changed the meaning from it is finished to paid in full. So now the cross reminds you of something else. The cross, Norca, you got a cross there, right? So that cross there reminds you paid in full. Oh, that's what my salvation means. Hold on, we're going to get deeper into this. Tetelestai is what was written by Roman citizens. When a Roman citizen had committed an infraction, whether you were a Roman citizen or not, and you were convicted of a crime, you were put into a prison cell, and then on the outside of the prison cell, there would be written on the prison cell an indictment of your infractions or what laws you broke. And so now you were found guilty in their judicial system, and you're put in there. There is this indictment that is written on the outside, nailed to the outside, so that everyone that walks by can see what you were convicted of while you're behind bars. Now, the interesting thing about tetelestai, paid in full, is that here comes now the work of the Redeemer. Somebody say Redeemer. Redeemer. That is very important, because while you are in jail, now there's an opportunity for someone to pay the ransom of your infractions. So if you've broken the law, now someone can actually pay so that you could be free. Now, there was a certificate that was given. It was written out once that person, Stephen, come here. Stephen broke the law. All right, he's in jail. He's in jail, and there was an indictment out here that said he was beating up little elderly women and taking away their possessions. I don't know. I just thought of something creative. I don't know. You have that face. Anyway, so just joking. So it's on the outside of the prison wall, okay? And now Christian now acts as the Redeemer. So he comes, come here, Christian. Christian comes, and he comes to the court system, and he pays the ransom to get this guy out, okay? Did he commit the crime? No. Did he commit the crime? No. Who committed the crime? Steve did, okay? Steve did. So now he pays the price. I see it. I grab the indictment. I rip it out, and across it, I stamp it, or not stamp it. I write across it, tetelestai, paid in full. And then he comes out, and then I give it to, listen, I don't give it to Christian, the Redeemer. Who do I give it to? The guilty party. And I give it to him. There you go. Boom. And now that is his certificate of freedom. That everywhere he goes, he doesn't stop being guilty because he was guilty of the crime, but there was a Redeemer that paid the price of his crime. All right. Did you get that? That's what you have to understand, because that's the hardest part in Christianity that people just can't fathom. They just can't. It can't be that easy. It is. Pastor Jay, how does this help me? Job chapter 19, verse 25 says this. I thought you were Adrian. You were about to play my... I was like, I will kick you. This is what Job said. But as for me, I know that my Redeemer lives, and he will stand upon the earth at last. What a confession to know I have a Redeemer. You have a Redeemer. We have a Redeemer. Listen, you and I are guilty. but there's a Redeemer. Now listen to this. Why and how does this work? In simplest terms. The other day, my wife and I we're here early trying to set things up with a group of guys, and we come in here early, and so we're usually here about 4 or 5 hours sometimes. And then, so we try to have lunch or dinner afterwards, okay, because we need to eat. And so I went to a restaurant with my wife, and usually my kids tag along. Now, I'm talking about my adult kids. And then my adult kids tag along with their kids. So, and then when we sit around the table and then the waiter comes, their hands get real heavy and slow, like. And I'm like, I thought I was going to grow out of this. And oh no, after I grab it, they're like, oh no, Dad, I got it. But listen to this. So the other day, we go out to dinner, and the guys are like, hey, Pops, where are we going? We're like, all right, we're going to go here. And we went to Borders Cafe, and we were having some Mexican food. I was having some, oh my God, they have the best, what's that called, man? With the fajitas, the beef fajitas. I'm so fat. Right? And they season it well. It's like, Is that carnitas, right? Yeah. It's the only dish that has its own announcement when it comes out. It's like, shh. And put it on the plate. It's like an announcement. When we had walked in, my George happened to be there eating with his family. Now, he didn't invite me. But he happened to be there. So when I got there, I'm like, hey, George, how you doing? And he's like, hey. So we hugged, and Denise was with him, one of the few times that he takes his wife out. So, I'm just joking. So we embraced, we hugged, and Manny was there, and Christian, and high five and everything. And then I go over here with the crew. We sit down, we have dinner and everything. We had a good old time, laughed, joked around. Time comes up. Then the waiter comes up, and he goes, and I go, I'm ready for the check. Because usually that's what I just go ahead and bypass all of the pleasantries. I know, guys. I know. All right. So, hey, can you bring me the check? And the guy goes, it's taken care of. I said, excuse me? Because I know it wasn't my kids. I just do it. So I'm like, excuse me. And he goes, no, sir, your bill has been paid. And I said, okay. Whoa, wow. Let me give you a tip or something. Oh, no, it's been paid in full. Now, He said, George, a young man by the name of George took care of this for you and the family. Yeah. Now listen, because before you get into just celebrating George, because this is not about George, this is about Jesus, I want you to understand something. I sat at the table and I started to think about my friendship with that guy. And I started to think about, I don't deserve him to treat me like that. He's got a wife, he's got kids. I got all these old knuckleheads with me. But he found me worthy of the investment. And I'm sitting there, and I didn't feel worthy to receive what he saw in me. And as I got up, I started to contemplate what Jesus does and did, and what the cross means for you, and what the cross means for me. That though you may not be worthy, and you may seem to think that you're not worthy, the way that he looks at you is not the same way that you may see yourself. And that's what that word tetelestai means. That's what the cross means. Norca, that's what that cross means. Every day that you walk out, yeah, people could judge you and say, Norca in church? Oh, she is scum. But Jesus goes, no, mama, I paid the price. It's paid in full. The hard part about this process in Christianity is that he has paid the price for the sins you committed and even the ones you're going to commit. And he has given you the certificate, okay, of payment. Did everybody get that point? Because one of the hardest things to do in Christianity, and this is the difference between religion and kingdom. Religion says that you always have to pay something. Let me pay for the tip. Sir, it's been paid for. No, I got to pay for something. Let me clean the dishes. Let me go sweep the curb. Let me at least help sweep up the crumbs and everything. Sir, your bill has been paid in full. Go, man. I have to do something. That's religion. Religion has such an ingrained focus on work, so that you can receive. And Jesus is saying, I paid the price, man. Enjoy life and enjoy it in abundance. And I tell you, this is why there is such a negative perspective on Christianity, because we don't understand in its totality, okay, the work of the cross. We don't understand it. We don't understand it. So here's Jesus says, whoa, in the room, in the party. Hey guys, I'm here for the sick people. That's what I'm here for. Number 3, lordship. Supreme ownership. That's lordship. This is what we're telling people. When we talk to people about Jesus, we're not talking to people about our church. We're telling people about his sovereignty. We're telling people about his salvation. And number 3, we're telling people about his lordship. Somebody say lordship. Now, lordship means that he is now supreme owner over every and all facets of my life. He is the owner. Why? He paid the bill. Did you get that? George, you don't own me because you paid the bill. But listen, when I come to Jesus, Jesus says, follow me, and I follow Jesus. I enter into his sovereignty. I enter into his salvation. Based on his salvation, now I inherit this lordship. Now I am his possession. And I need you to understand that. You need to understand the lordship role over your life means that no one else, nothing else can possess you. Let me say that again, because some people don't understand it. And this is why you're constantly talking about spiritual warfare, and we got to fight in the spirit. And Jesus is going, so what do you think I did on the cross? What do you think that was called? If you belong to him and he has ownership over you, your God, your Lord, your Jesus doesn't share his ownership. You're his possession, which means that you can't be possessed by anything else. Pastor, can you come over here? I think my wife is possessed by a demon. Baby, do you understand how this works? You can't be, he doesn't share his possession. They may need some Adderall, they may need some help, they may need something, some medication. That's people need help. But if you are his possession, nothing else can possess you. You know, I've been to services in the church circles, and my kids are witnesses, and you walk into church services, and everyone's shouting because they're excited, and then 20 minutes into the service, someone falls possessed by a demon or something, and they're crawling. Right? It's like going, whoa. The Bible says that earth trembles at the presence of God. So you mean that in his house where he is being lifted, there is demonic possession? And that's what I'm saying. This is the difference between religion, kingdom. All right, I know I stepped on some toes here. Well, then what's wrong with my wife? You getting on her nerve. That's what it is. Listen, my marriage is his. He has ownership over my marriage. My children aren't mine. My children are his. My finances, my checkbook, my investments, my possessions, my assets aren't mine. They're all his. My house is not mine. It is his. My business, my career, it's not mine. It is his. You know what he gives me the privilege to do? To manage it. So I don't have possession anymore because he's my Lord. Because he is my Lord, everything I have is his. I am now a steward. I am a manager of everything that he possesses. So my children aren't mine, they're his. I manage my children. My marriage, it's not mine. I manage the... Are you listening? She's like, you back. They're right. I manage this. I'm a manager of our marriage. My finances. I just can't be crazy with my finances. It's not mine, it's his. I'm a manager. You know, when you understand that what you are as a manager, you are a steward of everything that belongs to him, you treat things different. Don't you? Excuse me, don't you? Don't you treat something that's not in your, don't you treat it different? I had this bicycle in my garage that belonged to my mother-in-law for 9 years. In my garage because it was her bicycle. And for 9 years, we couldn't touch it because it was hers. So whenever I had to clean out my garage, I had to be very careful with her bicycle because it was her bicycle. I had to be careful. Now, my other bicycles and everything, I throw them and everything, but this one had to be different. Are you getting me? So this is the way we have to conduct ourselves in the things that we do and the things that we possess. Now, this is a concept that goes against the grain of this world, and Matthew shows us that though he had many friends and colleagues, the party was to honor Jesus as his new owner. He was announcing to everybody, come on, Steve, you're no longer scum. Come on, we got you. So he's like, hey, guys, there's a party in the house in honor of Jesus. We're all partying here in honor of who? Jesus. Jesus. Stay up here for a second. Listen, so Matthew's friends were there to be evangelized by Matthew. How interesting to make this the standard of all we do as Christians. Think about this. That our gatherings, our meetings, our times with family aren't baseless or empty, but they're always a celebration that is leading someone to Jesus. Think about that. And this is why we're talking about evangelism. You know, over the summer, think about how many functions you've attended. Think about how many more functions you're going to attend leading into the holiday. Well, Jesus is saying, hey, when you do these things, honor me. Jesus, the doctor, the sovereign Savior, the Lord, now has a claim over Matthew's new life, and Matthew wanted to share it with the very people that were living precisely the same way that Matthew was living before. And he wants to share with his friends. So what does he do? Does he invite them to church? Did Matthew invite his friends to church? Excuse me, did he invite them to church? Did he invite them to the synagogue? Did he invite them to the concert? No. You know what he did? Party. Party in the house. Everybody is partying in the house. And Matthew's like going, this is how I'm going to get my buddies, my friends to come all out. But Jesus, the doctor, I love this because he says they're sick and they need to be healed. I'm their remedy. This is the final point in evangelism. Somebody say relationship. Jesus is ours. Jesus is our connection to the Father. And you got to get this because this is the difference between kingdom and religion. Here we go. Are you ready? Yeah. Good, Becky. Thank you. Becky's ready. Are you guys ready? Yes. John 14:6. Jesus says. Stephen, read that out loud. Come on.
Jesus told him, Jesus told him, I am the way.
Jesus said, who? Go ahead. I am the way,
the truth, and the life. No one can
repeat that. No one. Come on, repeat it again.
I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one can.
One more time. No one.
No one.
One more time.
No one.
One more time.
No one.
Listen. No one.
No one can come to the Father except through me.
Listen. No one. I don't care how much Krishna and Buddha and all the other stuff you do. No one can come to the Father except through me. Have a seat. It is through Jesus that we have a relationship with an up and close and personal. What's this word, guys? What's this word, guys? What's that word, guys? Stop praying to God. Pray to the Father. Stop pursuing God. Pursue the Father. He's your dad. That's your pops. And see, religion has us focused on God and takes us away from focusing on our Father. And Jesus comes to the world to talk to us about his Father, not his God. Quiet. Quiet. It is through Jesus that we have this relationship with God. The Father loves us beyond our sins and beyond our infractions. Listen, there is nothing that this knucklehead could do to me. Or this one. Especially this one. But listen. Where's Deanna? Is there anything that knucklehead can do to you to rob you of love? Is there? There's nothing. How about that knucklehead? No. Are you getting this? Rob and Linda, you guys are parents. So think about that love that we have for our children. There's Most days. But even in the worst of worst, there's something about the love of a dad, of a mom. And I want you to imagine that that's how we ought to feel about our Father, knowing that he feels the same way about us. Big contrast from religion and knowing kingdom. Oh, this is what I gave my life to Jesus for the Father. So relationship with the sovereign Father. Here is Matthew. And Matthew now is showing his eagerness to share Jesus with the people that he loves. Now, people, I don't want you to miss this, because Matthew demonstrated how much he loved his friends. If you love your friends, if you love your family members, then you fight teeth and nail for them to know Jesus. Often we live lives that leave our family and friends in the dark. So we invite them to our homes, We invite them into our lives, but we don't talk to them about Jesus. We don't share Jesus. We just don't. And I'm not talking about preaching, and I'm just talking about you leave them in the dark. So they're always with you, or you're always around them, but they're just always in the dark. I don't think I can't keep secrets from my kids. I want to share my goodness with my kids. Everything I have, I want to share with the kids. And often we live lives sometimes where we hoard Jesus from the people we love. So come here again. So we invite, come on, Norca, come into my house. Hey, how you doing today, Norca? Oh, so good to see you. Well, how are you doing? And Norca, how's your day? And how's everything? Great. You're great, yeah? Are you going through some things? Yeah. You are going through some things. Is life tough? Yes. Isn't it? Ay, bendito. And the doctor is in the house. The doctor for her need, the doctor for the disease, the doctor for the cure is in the house, but this is how you live. All right. Have a seat. Have a seat. Thank you, Mamita. Thank you so much. Have a seat. Listen. Listen. And Matthew knew that in the previous life, like I pointed out, Hector, in the community, because of the role, he'd be considered scum, and he knew that. He knew that he was destitute and that he was rejected from everyone because of his role, because of his job. And now Matthew is excited. Hector is excited because now his life has changed. And because his life has changed, he has a party. Matthew is on fire and he's excited because he has been given a second chance. I don't know about you, but I know some of you lived some jacked up lives before Jesus. Don't make me point you out. Because I know some of you guys were jacked up before Jesus. And he comes in, listen, this is an exciting thing that you want to tell others about. So Matthew has a party in the house. The Bible gives no details about the party. Doesn't say that Matthew, was playing worship music or that he was playing, Hillsong or Tasha Cobbs. I don't know. He's probably playing a little Def Leppard or, I don't know, a little DMX maybe. It was a party. I don't know. He was playing something in the party. However, he drew what friends did he drew into his house? His fellow tax collectors. He brought people just like him. And he brings them all to this house. And now that he has them, ta-da, Jesus. To everybody that's in the house. Are you getting that? Are you getting that? His finances weren't the same. His behavior wasn't the same. He had a fresh outlook, a fresh perspective. I'm wrapping this up. But what better way to tell his friends and coworkers about his new life than having a reveal party? It was so funny. I was we were last week, Emmy, what's the young man's name? Is it Danny? Danny? Why you look so sad? So the young man that was with her, he goes, I gotta go to a gender reveal party. Oh, what? He goes, yeah, no. Like, what's that? He goes, yeah, it's a party where you reveal what sex the kid's gonna be. So that's the baby shower. No, it's the reveal. So there's a party before that. So do you get me? Yes. So here's Matthew, and Matthew is now having a reveal party. He's not revealing his gender, but he is revealing his new walk as a son of God. So he takes the opportunity to tell people about Jesus. Stand to your feet. As the guest of honor in this party, Hector in the back, I want you to think about this. Steve, come over here. Because Jesus is the guest of honor, Jesus had the best seat in the house. There was something between Matthew and Jesus in their connection. That even though everyone is in the house and everyone is celebrating and they're probably drunk, because I'm sure Matthew wasn't all the way saved yet, you know? And so I'm sure they had a lot of stuff in there to make the heart merry. But they were partying and they're having a good time. Jesus, if you could do for these guys what you did for me. This is the shot, man. This is it. This is the moment. Guys, that's called evangelism. How many times do we sit down and have a cup of coffee with someone who is broken, who is busted, who is hurting, and you have the doctor with you? That everywhere you go, that every room you enter, that those that are teachers and those that work with children and those that work in hospitals, that everywhere you go, you possess the doctor, the answer, the solution. Don't invite them to church. Have a party. And make Jesus your guest of honor.
Thank you again for checking out our podcast. If you would like to find information about who we are or how to donate so that we can keep doing what we're doing, please check us out at www.scarletnote.org. See you next time.